Let's go.
Let's
Okay,
go.
let's go.
So once again, welcome to this 48th Bond Manager webinar. Today we will deal with a new feature and also we have to know how to find out how to manage your freelancers invoice. So starting today, your star is going to be Marion Landau for the first English webinar for her.
Yeah, my first one.
The one that you know, 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is always here, and I, Kilian Basto,
Often here.
often. What's the index today? So we separate this webinar in five parts. So the first one's going to be the setup. So what you have to do to make all the configuration for your freelancer and subcontractors access. On the second one, you're going to have the implement, how to create a delivery purchase to install everything. On the third part, it's going to be a submit, how you can collect and submit your freelancer and subcontractor invoice. And the next step is going to be manage, how to process with those invoices. And we will finish with go further and some helpful apps. Something that we have on our interface, so if you see different, it's normal because we have set up our interface with relevant dataset. Also, we have access to administration to modify certain elements. And to finish, we have access to an intranet account. That's normal if you're not. Before starting, some wording and phrasing to be okay with our English. So freelance is going to be the self-employed consultant. Subcontractors going to be consultant on the behalf of a partner IT service company. So the partner is the IT service company that subcontracts a consultant. And the supplier is just the freelancer company. So now let's start with the first part. It's going to be the setup and how to manage those access. And it's going to be Marion who's going to start.
Thank you, Kilian. So, first of all, we would like to highlight two best practices in your settings to allow you to manage your freelancers in the best way ever in the administration settings. So you can click on your name, yep, and you can go on the administration menu and in the manager and role section. And here in the role tabs, there is a new feature linked to your freelancer's profile because we have the employee intranet, the freelance intranet, and the subcontractor intranet. These roles enable you to choose which module your user will have access to. In the freelance intranet, the default setting are my timesheets, my expenses, and of course, my invoices, because it's the prerequisite to optimize the management of your freelancer and most of all, easily collect invoices from them. So you can save the role if it's okay for you, but you can adapt these settings if you want to your context. Once the settings are done, the second tips is related to sharing information for your freelancers on their presence or not on a working day. So in your legal agencies, in the activity and expenses tab, we recommend to create in the timesheet work unit type sections a new absence type, which can be called new non-working days, for example, in an absence activity type, and you will allow by default for some types of resources and only external one, so that it can always provide the information of their presence or absences. Okay, great for the configuration of these data. Now we will go on your resources card and deal with two stages. The first one, before creating or activating or updating the intranet, be sure to have well fulfilled the resource card with an email address in the information tab, which will be also now the login for the connection, an assignment to a project to enable your freelancer to record his timesheet. In our case, for 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗶, she is working on this project, 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗃, for the Samsung customer. And once this done, you can go on the configuration button in order to activate the checkbox, sorry if it's not, check the role that is assigned as we did the settings. For her is a freelance intranet, and check the login. A quick aside, from now on, single sign-on allows your freelancers to have a single account where they can link their different spaces of work. So for this purpose, the login is now mandatory, the email address. And also for security reasons, the password is now the property of the user. Only your freelancer can update it. Okay, so this configuration is okay. And finally, we have, last but not least, recommendation. We recommend to add a provider in your resource administrative card. So how to deal with this? You can go on the personal information and add a provider. Before that, you should have created this step, before this step, the provider as a company with a contact in your CRM module. For example, with a freelancer profile, we created 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗶 as the contact of 𝗪𝗲𝗃 Corporation, which is her own company. As Kilian reminded at the beginning of the webinar, she is a self-employed consultant. We have another example, for example, for 𝗪𝗲𝗃𝗃, that who is a subcontractor, and you can search for another contact, who is Andrew, I think, yeah, of the Hollywood Corporation. Why having a provider is important? It actually have two advantages. First one, be able to carry out analysis and extractions based on this profile, and be able to use our 𝗪𝗃 application. We will focus on that a little bit later in this webinar. I think it's time now for the recap. I'll give you back the presentation, Kilian.
Yeah, thank you, Marianne. So let's recap. As we can see, and as you have understood, Boom now allowed you to separate the different modules. So now you have time, expenses, and absence. We also had My Invoices module, which can be activated directly from the internet role. You now have access at those modules, and you can activate one or more module of your choice depending on the type of the consultant instead of four. To allow one more detailed analysis of your activity, we recommend you to attach the supplier record to the external resource. Like we saw, if it's a freelancer, we still advise to creating their company on the CRM with their own name, so you can link their CRM files to the resource files. As you've reiterated, if it's a subcontractor, it's more appropriate to link the contact from the IT service company that represent the external resource. And to go further, you can also set up a bank account if you are using 𝗪𝗃 application. Now let's go to the second part, and I will give the head to Cyril to do the second part, implement and create the delivery purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kilian. Okay, so thank you, Marianne, for the first part. That was really clear. And now that we have everything ready to start, then there is something important not to forget, is that we need to create that delivery purchase. So to do so, we're going to take one of the projects that we have right now. So let's go to the projects module, and let's open our facturation project. Okay, in the project, as usual, you've made here the different qualification, and then we go to the deliveries tab. And we have here 𝗪𝗲𝗃𝗃 working for that project. So let's open the delivery. And here, something very important before you actually create the delivery purchase is to make sure that the qualification of the delivery is correct. So here we have the start date and end date, very important here for the 1st of July to the 31st of December. We have the contracts, the resource contract there ready. We have the number of days, so everything seems to be correct. So now let's go and create the delivery purchase. To do so, we are going to click on the plus at the top right hand of the screen and then on delivery purchase. Okay, so here, let's just take a minute to understand the message here. When you actually manage a project, a regular project with no purchase, with no delivery purchase, the way that we're going to impact the costs will be with the ADC of the resource based on the contract. And then we're going to have a look at the times declared and entered every month. Here, that will be a bit different because as we're going to have a purchase on that project, every month we are going to manage a payment, and this payment and obviously the amount of the payment will be used to impact the production cost on the project. So just be aware of that the system will be a bit different. Okay, so now that we are ready, just maybe last precision, every payment will be linked to a status, and then only the confirmed and settled or paid payments will be taken into consideration to impact the production cost, not the planned one, and we'll come back to that later. Okay, so let's click on confirm. And here, that's the creation step of this purchase. Okay, so we have a title here, which is by default 𝗪𝗏, so the name of the person, and then the code of the mission, but we can actually change that if we want, no problem, as we are doing right now. Then it's a monthly payment by default. And as I said before, the dates of the delivery were very important because they are reused here on the purchase on the 1st of July to the 31st of December, and I cannot change that right now. Okay, so that's a total of 6 schedules, and that you will see the importance of that later for the payments. And we have an estimate of the amount of each payment based on the ADC of the resource and the number of days. So obviously that's just an estimate, and then every payment will have a different amount based on number of days entered and declared by the resource. Okay, it's an external delivery kind of payment, a purchase, sorry. And on the right, also make sure that everything about the payment term, payment methods, VAT are correct for this purchase. So when you think and you consider that everything is okay and well qualified, then you could click on save. Just before that, we have something here again, which is a bit new, thanks to that new feature of the freelancer invoice. When you actually create the purchase, you have 2 options. The first one would be here to click on automatic, so the automatic creation of the payments that we suggest with the planned status of the payments. The objective of that, so let's say the purpose of that would be to help you plan and estimate the different payments to come, because every payment from the 1st of July to the 31st of December, so the 6 months will be created, and that can help you with your forecast. Or there is another option, would be to say, I do not actually need to have this forecast and to have the payments pre-created at this stage. So then I would choose manual. And every time I'm actually going to validate the invoice of my external consultants, a new payment will be added to the purchase. That's why I can just decide to use that, and then, month by month, create that payment. The 2 options will be then, again, reviewed later, so when we'll go back to that. For that purchase, we're going to choose the manual version because we actually do not need to do the forecast, so we don't need to have the pre-creation of the different payments. All right, so now that we set, let's just click on the save button. Okay, and let's go back to the, so yeah, if we go to the payment tab here, we are going to notice that there is nothing because then we decided not to create the payments. Again, we can have a look here at the recap of that payment. So we have here a total, the purchase of the total purchase is 78,000 pounds. But then on the right for the state of the payment, we can see that for now there is nothing. So there is nothing planned, nothing confirmed, nothing paid. Okay, let's go back to the project card just to see the difference. So now we have a new tab, purchases, that we didn't have before because we had no payments and no purchase. And same if you go to the consumption tab of the project, here there is something interesting to see compared to what I said before. We do already have taken time, so we have 5 days, which have already been entered by Caroline on the timesheets. But as we do not take that into consideration anymore, the production cost of that project is equal to 0, because for now we have no payments, no confirmed or paid payments, so we have no production cost at all. Okay, so I think it's time to recap this part right now.
Thank you. So, like we saw with Serial, we first create the purchase from the delivery itself. So we enter on the delivery and we click on the plus. It's very important because if you make a purchase outside this the delivery, the cost will not impact the resource card. So you must enter exactly inside. Second, we saw also that the cost are came from by payment when we made a delivery purchase and not by tracking time. Like we see on consumption tab, Caroline has clocked 5 days, but we have no cost for the moment. So it's gonna be your payment and the statute who gonna decide it. We also talk about two methods. The first one that you planned all your payment, it's for analyzing your forecast cost. But if you don't need that solution, you can switch to manual to create no payment because we're gonna see that when we're gonna validate an invoice, the payment will be created automatically. Now, let's go to the third part with Marianne, who will show us how to submit a provider invoice through a resource access. She will demonstrate it how 𝗪𝗲𝗯 should do it.
Yeah, exactly, Keegan. So, as she sent an invoice for the August production that has a different amount versus the timesheets data, the administration of sales with Jenny did not validate the invoice for 𝗪𝗲𝗯, and worse, she rejected it. And to notify 𝗪𝗲𝗯, she started a thread with her, tell her that there is a problem. 𝗪𝗲𝗯 received an email with the link, and when she's clicking on it, she is sending in the new tab, the good one, with the thread. So this thread can be seen at two different places also, or in the notification center, or on the thread button in the invoice directly. So as we are now in the invoice module of 𝗪𝗲𝗯's intranet, indeed she did a mistake as the invoice has 23 days while the timesheets got 22 days. So besides, don't hesitate to use the zoom button to be able to see all the document or to open it in a new tab with this option. In this case, there's a mistake. She can delete the wrong invoice and submit the correct one easily by dropping the new file from her computer. But she still has some modification to save after that. First, the amount of the general information section, because now the amount is, yeah, £22,000. Perfect. And also she has to change the state as it is still in rejected, but she wants to submit the invoice in order to be validated by Jenny. So she can change the state and save the invoice. Okay, while she is saving the invoice, there's a message that explains that now the invoice will be locked and she will no longer be able to do any modification. Now she can tell to Jenny through the thread that she doesn't work in this way, and everything is now correct for the August production. Okay, that was for the August data. Now we will deal with the September information. First of all, we will go on My Timesheets in order to clock her times. So she can click on the line and add activity by this button, for example. She will select the project that she is working on, which is 𝗵𝗻𝗄, and click on the Fill option in order to save times. Perfect. She can save the information and validate the timesheet, but not too fast because she has to fill her survey data to say how amazing was her month and how everything went so well on her work. She can save the timesheet in order here also to not be able to modify anything. Now that's done, she can submit the invoice for the September production, clicking on My Invoices module on the plus button, and she can drop the file from her computer like she did for the August updating. So she created this invoice document. She can check if everything is okay on the document, and she has to confirm the invoice date, which is by default the date of the day you're adding the invoice, and she has to update the correct period of the production from the 1st of September and to end the last day of the month. She will have to save this document to be able to see the timesheet information and check the consistency between the invoice that she did and the data she made in the timesheet. And now she has to change the state to be validated information and to save the invoice in order to lock it and not be able to change anything again. Finally, there's an interesting view in the invoices module that will enable your freelancer to filter by state or by period, for example, that they can follow easily their evolution through this view. There are two more tips that we can share with you. The first one is that they have to check their notification center if they want to discuss with you with something about their timesheet or the invoices. And also, as we discussed before, while setting her intranet, 𝗪𝗲𝗯 can now choose which work environment she wishes to connect to by merging her accesses, by clicking on her name at the top right hand, perfect, and select Switch Workplace button. And she can choose the environment she is working on, which is webinar for our example. So let's go to the recap, Kylian. It's okay for you?
Let's go. Thank you, Marianne. So what we see on this third part, we see through a freelancer intranet role, like 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗶, that she have access to my invoice module. She can now submit her invoice, make the timesheet, like we set up on her role. She also available to discuss with the people who is dealing with his invoice. And she have now invoice card when she drop it, and she can change the statute. Be careful with that statute. On draft, she can do anything. To be validated, it's mean locked. Also, if the administration of sales reject it, then she can modify, like delete or not, but be careful of the amount and the date always. We also talk about an access to several interface. It's mean that the external who have this access can jump to another interface. Now we have a unique login and a unique password, and for a global configuration. She can switch between Boond interfaces when she wants. Now, let's go further and let's go to see how we have to manage with. We will switch the access to administration of sales, and we will be with Cyril.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's my turn. All right, thank you, Kylian, for that recap. Okay, so now let's forget about the access of 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗶𝗆, and this time let's log in as Jenny Tussor. She's the administration of sales, and so this case scenario will be a bit different because this time we're going to manage the invoice of a subcontractor, and as this person does not have the internet access to Boond Manager, I'm going to take care of submitting that invoice for that person, or for, let's say, for our partner. Okay, so to do so, this invoice is actually for Caroline Henemy, so one of the person working with us. So let's go directly to her resource profile, and then let's choose the right tab at the top and invoices. Okay, so as before, let's just click on the plus or create provider invoice. Let's drop the correct file. And here, that's the invoice for Caroline's for the month of September. Okay, so as Marianne showed us before with 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗶, so we have here the same layout, exactly the same. So we have the invoice there. There is something a bit different on that invoice, is that Caroline is actually working on two different projects for us. So she's working on the accountability project and on the facturation project. Okay. Then On the left, as before, that's very important to update the start date. So here, the 1st of September, and the end date, the 30th of September. Let's check that the amount is correct, which seems to be good here. So apparently we have no mistake, and we can now save the invoice. Okay, so here, as before, so we have the activities and expenses for the period, so the recap. And as we have two different projects for that person, for Caroline, we do have the two different activities here on the recap. And that's a good way for us to check that the invoice is correct. So we have 5 days for the facturation project and 16 days for the accountability project. Okay, so now let's change the state of that invoice to be validated and save. Okay. So now that I submitted that invoice, it's time for me as the administration of sales to manage those invoices. So let's go back to the purchases module and then more particularly to the provider's invoice submodule. And let's use a safe search that we have created for the UK invoices to be validated. Okay, so we've got 3 of them. So if you've followed us so far, you should remember that we have 2 different invoices for 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗵𝗵, the one for August that she corrected, the one for September, the new one, and then again for Caroline, the invoice for September. Okay, so let's start with 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗵𝗵, so the invoice of August. So let's open that one. Okay, so that's the one that she actually corrected. So let's check that it seems to be okay. We have the 22 days. We have the total amount, which is correct. Okay, good. So maybe that we confirm using the thread that she did okay, and then that it's all right now. Let's check that. Okay, I'm on it. It's okay. All right. And then we can confirm that we can validate that invoice. Perfect. Okay, so now let's change the state to validated and save. Okay, so here, what happens? As we said before, every time you are going to validate the invoice of a freelancer, or let's say an external consultant, then we are going to confirm that a new payment is going to be created in the purchase. So here, that's what you have here in the blue section. You still have the choice when you actually create that payment to choose between the planned, confirmed, and paid states. By default, what we suggest is to keep the confirmed state for the payments, as we know that everything is okay, as we actually checked the invoice, and then later on, based on the payment terms and conditions, we are going to pay it. Okay, so let's click on confirm. When we do that, if we scroll down a little bit, we see that now we have a new section here, which is the attached payments to that invoice. Okay, we'll just go deeper into that just after. So let's do the same with the other invoice. Let's use the arrow that we have to navigate at the top of the page. So now that's 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗵𝗵's invoice for the month of September. Same here, just make sure that everything is fine, the amount of days, the total amount. All right, we're good. Okay, so let's change for validated. Okay, same here. Let's confirm the creation of the payments. And then finally, the last one, that will be the invoice for Caroline Henemy for September with the 2 different projects. Okay, same here, last check. I think we're good. Number of days, total amount. All right, okay, so let's update the state to validate it. Let's save. Let's confirm. Okay, and here, what you notice that we do have the 2 different payments, and each payment has the right amount. So we do have the ones for the facturation project, the one for the accountability project. It all matches with the recap that we are showing above, and obviously also with the invoice of the provider. Okay, so now let's focus on those payments. So let's click on the first one. Let's maybe use another tab. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so that's the payment that we have created with the details, number of days, all of the amounts are okay, the period is okay. So here there is actually nothing to change. So let's go back to the purchase cards. Okay, and for that purchase, we decided not to keep the forecast. So we didn't create the payments. So then we have nothing to take care of here. That payment is ready to be paid later on. Okay, so now let's have a look at the other payments that we had in the invoice. Okay, so let's open that one. There we go. And here, same. So everything is already pre-filled. There is actually nothing to change. Let's go back to the purchase card, and here that will be a bit different. Okay, so here we have more information. So as we decided for that purchase to keep the planned payment for the forecasts, we now have two different lines. So we have two lines for September, the one which is confirmed, the one that we've just created thanks to the invoice, and the one which is planned that we had created beforehand. So as we actually no longer need the one which is planned, let's just select it and delete it. Okay. And let's just maybe have a look at the different recap that we have on that purchase. So here in the total state of the payments, so here we have like 39,000 pounds for the planned payments, which, as a reminder, are not taken into consideration in your reporting for the production costs. But we already have 23,400,000 pounds of confirmed payments, so taken into consideration in the reporting, and already 13,000 pounds of paid payments. All right, so now maybe to finish, let's go back to the provider's invoice view. And as we still have our filter applied, we see that now everything is done. We have no provider invoice to take care of. So now we're done and we're good. And I think it's maybe time for the recap.
Thank you, Cyril. So here we see that when you change the status, it's automatically make the payment matching to one or multiple projects. As we see, 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗵𝗿 has several invoices, but one project. So the invoices matches the own project. But Caroline was on several projects. And when we change automatically the statute to be validated, he create two payments, one for the good project and one for the other. But I recommend you to make verification of the attribution between purchase and payment. As you can see, sometimes if you're using the first method means plain your payments, you have to delete it. So make verification between your invoice and your payment to see if everything is correct on the consumption. Also, as you can see, when we change the statute on validated, it's create instantly the invoice and the payment. We continue the recap with an invoicing cycle with a supplier manager. So what we see. On the first part, we deal with the collaborator. So we qualify the resource card, we open the access, we create a provider with CRM card, and we link the supplier to the resource card for those next steps. On second time, we went to the delivery. We make qualification, we changed the date, everything was good. So we were inside and we convert the delivery to a delivery purchase. So it's very important. On the third part, we deal with the purchase and those payments. We choose method one, manual, no forecast cost analysis, or the second one with planned. We update the purchase card, we see the supplier was linked, and we see if we want to plan or not those payments. After that, we go through the submission of those invoices. We see with Marianne that we made through a resource access, and we see with Cyril through administration of sales access. We also see how to process and deal with those invoices, how to correct it, how to change the date, to check the amount, to reject it, to talk with the resource. And now, when you finish all your cycle, you can go further by analysis your cost. For that, we see two ways. For the moment, we see the consumption tab through your project card that you can see also your cost when you change the statute of your payment. To go further, you can also use another view. It's reporting project where you can analyze the detail of those costs if you have more than only delivery purchase. Now, let's finish with the last part to go further, and we will see some helpful apps that you can use. And for that, I call Marianne.
Yeah, thank you, Kylian. So for this last part, we will go through 3 apps linked to our subject of the day. The first one is the 𝗪𝗂 application that will enable you to generate a 𝗪𝗂 file to pay your suppliers or subcontractors invoices by transfer. To do so, you will follow 3 steps. First, enter the bank details of your supplier, CRM companies, or in the app or in the CRM card. Then through the purchase, you will have to configure the transfer settings, selecting payment in the method of payment. And finally, you can click on the 𝗪𝗂 application through debit transfer settings by selecting bank detail. You can change it in bulk through an import, the bank details, or deal with this one by one. And finally, you can now, from this application, generate the 𝗪𝗂 file and extraction. The second application is the intranet account that will enable you to update data in bulk linked to the intranet settings. We recommend you to use filters to be able to update in bulk all the data that needs to be updated at the same time. For example, if you choose in your filter all these for external consultant, for example, that's perfect. So you can select all your results and change or the state or the role. So activate all the intranet that are not, or change the role to set freelance intranet, as this is a new feature. Finally, we have the accounting and payroll 𝗪𝗏𝗡 application that allows you to generate files to import your accounting and payroll data into your accounting tool, Sage or cie_GID, and HR tool, Sage or cie_𝗍, to view and extract accounting entries for invoices, expenses, and purchases, and view and extract time spent, salaries, and expenses for your resources. So thanks to this app, you can now easily transfer data from Boond Manager with your accounting and payroll tools. I think we're done with the application and with all the webinar. I hope everything was clear. If it's not the case, or if you have any question, don't forget we have the Q&A section. Maybe we have some of them, guys.
It was crystal clear, but I think we have maybe a few questions. We have a question here which somebody is asking if we actually need a license for an external consultant for them to submit their invoice. And the answer is yes. So actually today, it's like, when you enter your time, when you declare your expenses, and when you submit invoices, you need to have a license, you need to have your own account, and that's when you log in, as we did with the account of 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗶, that you can actually submit your invoice. Yeah, there we go, as we are showing you right now. Do we have any other questions?
We have a question to know if it's possible to customize the list of states for the provider invoices. So in fact, it's possible. If you go through your administration section, we have a global settings section, and in your action and states tab, you can add states that you want for this the invoices states here.
This one, provider invoice states.
Yeah.
And be careful with those signal, because it means that the platform will do another thing. For example, draft is going to be the default value, and to be validated, it's going to lock the invoice on the resource access. Validated is going to create and generate the payment, and rejected going to unlock and leave a mark that that the resource can modify the invoice.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from another question here. If the payment terms is 30, 35 days, for example, can we approve the invoice and get a notification the day when the payment needs to be done? That's a good question. What we actually recommend you doing, based on the payment terms, is that in the invoice, you will have actually, if we go back to the payment, maybe that would be easier. So purchases and the payment directly. When you open the payment, you actually have different states, and then you will have the payments just under, like, there's a state. Yeah, like, we have the payment expected date. That one is calculated based on the invoice date and the payment term here, which is net 30 days. So as the invoice date is the 31st of August, then obviously the expected payment date is the 30th of September. And how you can then easily find out, what you need to pay, when you actually go back to the payment view of the purchases module, then you can apply filters. And as here, actually, we have already a filter based on the expected payment date. And then you will then choose the dynamic period or the week or whatever. So you have here a lot of options, like you put this month, for example, then you apply, and then you will see all of the invoice that you need this month, meaning September, that you need to pay because they are confirmed and because the payment date is actually right now. So that's the way they can you follow it.
Yes, and with those filters, if you want to manage it, like we can see, Jenny has a board who said the payment that be settled this month. So when she been connected, she already see that she have to deal with those payment. She can open it and start to deal by making the transfer, then switch by paid.
Yeah, that's correct. We have another question from Enemy, which is how can we do if we have a company hosting several freelancers? This company is not able to upload the invoices of all the freelancers. That's correct. So right now, we do not have a kind of access which will be for several people at the same time. So which means that you need one access per person. Still, something that now you can actually benefit from that we talked about today is that we have the unique connection. So you actually create your account in which you can have different workspaces. That would be an option. So still you need several workspaces, but thanks to that, maybe if you are managing 7, 8 people, you can just have your main account. Then in that account, have the 7, 8 different workspaces, which means actually 7, 8 different access for different people. And then you can easily navigate from one and the other, and then submit invoices. That would be the best option that we can suggest right now. So I hope that it answers the question. We have another quick question, which is, can I export my provider invoices? Yes, you can actually do that. Just depends on the rights that you've been entitled. But then you go back to purchases, providers, invoices. Then you would have the export button at the top right hand that you can use either to export everything, or then obviously you can just have a selection of some invoices and then just export those ones. But yeah, that's possible.
And when you have several, you can also have the download center who have all the invoice, sorry, that you generated. You also can create an access there to someone to download it.
That's correct. Maybe
Other
that,
questions?
I think that we have a last question.
Perfect.
Asking, so can we actually bill the clients even if the freelancer have not submitted their invoice yet? So the answer is actually yes. Let's say that it's another step of your process. What you need to bill your clients is obviously, if billing, depending on the time, you need to have the times entered and declared in a timesheet. So that's, let's say, the critical step for you to bill the clients. But then if your freelancer has not yet submitted their or his or her invoice, then that will not block your invoicing. That will just obviously block the way that you can pay them. But that's, let's say, on their behalf. So yes, so no problem. You can actually bill as long as you have the timesheets declared and validated. All right. I think that that's it for the questions, apparently.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So maybe it's time to finish this webinar, to thank you all for your participation. That was really nice to have you on board.
Thank you, everyone, and do not hesitate to answer the form that you will receive when you're gonna quit this Zoom, and to evaluate it this webinar and see and tell us, sorry, which subject we want to deal with next time.
That's
And
true.
by the way, what is the next webinar already scheduled?
Yeah, we have a next webinar, which is scheduled actually in English for the English speakers. That will be, let me find the date, that soon. I will tell you that in 2 seconds. It's on the 15th of October. And that next one in English will be about the administration best practice.
Oh yeah,
Mm,
good
Very
subject.
interesting.
Mhm.
So feel
So
free to, you actually get some invitation very soon for participating if you're interested.
once
All
again,
right.
thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Yep.
Marion. Thank you,
Thank you.
Siri. And see you soon and hope you enjoy this webinar.
Yeah. And have a good day, everyone.
Have a
Bye bye,
good day.
guys.
Bye.
Bye
Goodbye,
bye.
everyone.